What is up, YouTube? It's Andrew here from the Heroic Play, and I don't even know if this is going to be a podcast or a tactical video. We're just filming a video. We have one battle report in the pipe with the new 2026 meta, so that's going to be coming out shortly. But I did want to get a sort of like tactical or podcast style video out, just because I feel like I've been doing just battle reports, and I want to kind of switch it up. So anyway, this is going to be basically titled something along the lines of Super Juniors in 2026 or True Mercenaries in 2026. So essentially, at the time of recording, we have 3 Super Juniors. That is Lord Carver, it's Nostilla, and it's also Magnus. So these are kind of broken down into 3 different categories to the general public. It's the shooty one, the support one, and the melee one, right? But it's a little more nuanced than that. And I also kind of want to talk about my meta read. So I think actually a good spot to start this is actually the meta read. So with the lethality changes coming in, defense being a really important stat to have, and most things hitting like a truck still, it's one thing that we're going to key in on. Another thing we're going to key in on is kind of just how to keep these alive, because if the Warcaster or Warlock dies, the true mercenary beast or Jack also dies, which is not great. So talking about how to kind of keep them safe, and we'll just kind of get into it. So if your army has some way of just debuffing the enemy, whether it be defensively or armor. So basically, if you can subtract their armor or their defense, the value that the true mercenaries give just skyrockets. So essentially, instead of it being like a friendly faction, oh, Carnage just +2 to hit, or Insight +2/+2 to hit for friendly faction, doesn't really help your true mercenaries a lot. So taking that big 20-point bubble doesn't really make sense. But if you have Crippling Grasp, if you have some other form of defense like debuff for your enemy, the true mercenary values actually go up, because it doesn't necessarily need to be friendly faction in order to benefit from these abilities. So another thing that you want to look out for is, what is your army missing? This tends to be a relatively range heavy meta, so if you can get something that can fix that, or if you're having a hard time to hit and you don't really have a supportive unit, or your Warcaster doesn't have an answer to high defense, there is actually, and people tend to forget about this, there is actually a true mercenary that can literally help you play that champion. Or I guess Warlock, Warcaster, or Army in this case. But let's get into it. The real meat and potatoes here. So we have Carver Ultimus, as I probably was calling him Lord Carver because that's what he was known as in Arc 2. But essentially, he's got 12 health. Relatively normal Warlock stat line, except his defense and armor. Defense is pretty low, armor's really high. He's got tough and dual attack. He's got hyper aggressive, and the one thing I want to key in on is he is currently the only Warlock in the true mercenary categories here. So the other 2 are Warcasters. So what he can do is he could transfer damage, which can actually help him stay alive and stay a lot more tanky than people expect him to be. He also is leading the War Boar, which is his character War Beast. He's got double barrel scattergun, which has both barrels, which can go up to POW 16 boostable, which is pretty gross. It's also got the Ham, or now renamed the Hand of God Almighty. It's BAT 7, range 2, POW 15. Pretty good for a Warcaster Warlock. He's also got the Swine Ripper, which has got critical pitch. He's only a medium base model, but still being able to throw a Warlock would be pretty sweet. Batter Down the Hatches, which is trading 2 defense for +3 armor, but you can't be knocked down. Doesn't really matter. Defense goes down to, like 11. Then this ability, which I rarely see people capitalize on often, but it's Quagmire. So he actually has a defensive debuff, where while base to base with target friendly faction model/unit, which would be War Boar, or I suppose himself, enemy models suffer -2 defense and cannot advance. Now, the -2 defense, great. The crazy thing is the cannot advance. So most things are titled advanced, even if they're not in their own activation. So like retaliation, that's a advance. Anything that basically is an out of activation move, if it says advanced, you still can't do it, which is kind of insane. So the only way you can get away from this person is by destroying the thing that has Quagmire. So kind of gross. Don't really see a lot of people use this, but it could be a game winner in the late game or even kind of mid game, just depending. It doesn't allow people to capture objectives if they're not careful. Torment, this is another pretty good spell that I don't see a lot of people capitalize on. It's essentially one of the reasons why people take Malgrath in the first place, which is you can get rid of tough, you can they cannot remove damage, and they cannot transfer damage. So the cannot transfer damage is probably one of the most insane aspects of this spell, because even if a warlock is sitting on, like, I don't know, like 5-3 fury and can potentially just kill your assassination run, oh, hit the torment, boom, we're good. So it's also, a lot of people forget he has this. You can also hit this on a chimera. If you boost it, you're gonna do on average, on 3 dice you're looking at 11s. So 12 plus 11 is 23, so you're penning most armor at that point. So you can shut off the trike hyper regenerative healing, you can turn off tough, and you can turn off transferring damage, which is kind of nuts. So the Warboar, pretty beefy boy here. Is really slow at speed 4. He's got standard mat and rat, def 10, armor 19. If you do batten down the hatchins, he goes up to armor 22, threshold 5, fury 5, threshold 8. He's got eyeless sight, which is pretty important on a ranged anything, and he's also got gladiators. So if you're going for a cheeky trample, pretty sweet. He's got bulldoze, another kind of like mess with your opponent ability. So if you want to just push someone off of the objective, you can. He's got exhaust fumes, which gives you concealment to anything within 3 inches, which could technically activate your prowls. So something to look out for there. He also has an ability to get +2 speed at the sacrifice of D3 damage. So pretty good. Also got 2 volley cannons, so he can force reload himself, and it has volume fire. So potentially he can go up to rat 8 against beasts and jacks or anything that's a large base. And he goes up to POW 15. These are also pistols. He can technically get 4 shots off, but it's going to cost him 2 fury. So if you want to boost, you can technically only fully boost the attack and damage on one of those shots, and then have to choose on the 4th shot. The 2nd shot. He's got chain tusks with critical shred, POW 18, pretty standard. He's also got recoil, which the spellcaster gains Swift Hunter. So when a model with Swift Hunter destroys one or more enemy models with a basic ranged attack, immediately after attack is resolved, they can advance up to 2. Now, this can also be cast on Carver, so you can do some pretty cheeky out of activation moves here. Or out of straight speed moves, per se. So that's pretty much how Carver and Warboar function. Unfortunately, I think they're a little more corner case. Don't get me wrong, being able to throw out 4 POW 15 shots is pretty sweet, especially if you have some sort of armor debuff. So let's say you've got Crippling Grasp. The power of the gun essentially goes to POW 17. So you're going to be hurting a lot of things at that point. So if you can subtract armor in some way, shape, or form, these guns will really, really hurt. The only thing that's kind of rough is range 10, so Warboar is going to put himself into danger against most things that are speed 6, 7, or have reach. So essentially, that's going to be interesting there. So, I mean, that's my one problem with the Warboar is you really got to put him in the line of fire. Now, if this is your kind of like take the center of the board and hold peace, and this is what you're kind of using as your anchor, then there's no real problem with that, especially if you're gonna plan to kind of trade this out. I just can foresee that you're gonna put yourself in dangerous situations often, and it's gonna be a more of a trade piece than a kind of cornerstone staple late game brawler. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's just you got to kind of keep that in mind. But lots of tools that this guy gives you the concealment, gives you the bulldoze, and also Carver gives you the turn off tough, remove damage, or transfer damage. Also the Quagmire as well. So pretty solid. I still haven't taken him yet just because I believe that the other true mercenaries kind of flow with the current meta a little bit. Speaking of that, we're gonna go with Nostilla. So this person was supposedly gonna get a buff, or sorry, not a buff, a debuff that the community thought would make them almost useless because they were a menace in 2025 Q3 and Q4. But they did get debuffed. But let me tell you, it was not enough. I think Aberration and Nostilla are still absolutely insane. There's a few things that I really want to touch on Aberration that I think a lot of people kind of forget about and can make your army do just disgusting things. So anyway, let's go with Nostilla. You can tell it's a less health than Carver, not as beefy. For stats, oddly enough, the one that doesn't make sense to me is how is Carver better at casting spells than Nostilla, but that's okay. Speed 6, Mat 5, AAT 5, Rat 5. Okay, cool, makes sense. Defense 16, super sweet, especially if you're taking the defenses card and you just sit behind a wall. Armor 14, Arc 5, Control 12. That Control 12 is actually pretty important. Pathfinder, Eyeless Sight, and Dual Attack. Realistically, you're probably never going to use the prosthetic blades, but it does have Inflict Pain, which is kind of nice just to do some, fury manipulation on your opponent's war beasts. However, if you're doing this, you're probably dead or really in a bad spot. Realistically, the main meat and potatoes is this Psychic Force with what we thought would be critical brain damage, but it's still just brain damage. What? Nani? It doesn't make sense to me. So boostable Rat 5. So realistically, again, on 3 dice, you're probably going to throw on statistical dice 11 plus 5. So you're going to be hitting on average dice 16 defense, which who guessed it? That's normal Warcaster defense. So it's spray 10. Most likely going to brain damage the opponent's Warcaster Warlock because it's a POW 14. So you boost that too. So you're still damaging them. Yeah, they can't cast spells. Now, I'm not sure how this interacts with if the damage is transferred somewhere else, because I don't know if that's still technically you're damaging the Warlock / Warcaster. But, par for the course, we'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. But yeah, this caster also has Anatomical Precision, Combat Drugs, so range 5, you can give Aberration Aggressive, which is a free charge. Kind of huge, actually, if you ask me. Aberration is the monstrosity that she takes into battle. She also has the Power Field ability, so she could essentially reduce damage by 5. She has Sucker still, which we thought she would lose. If this model is directly hit by an enemy ranged attack, choose a friendly non-incorporeal warrior model within 3 of it to be directly hit instead. One thing to note here is that if that model has some sort of hey, if I get damaged, I get a buff. For example, Criterions or anyone with the Retaliation or Retaliatory Strike ability where they can advance 3 and make a free melee attack. This is kind of an insane ability, just saying. And then Vitalizer, which is just give a monstrosity a focus point. The cool thing is it says target friendly, not friendly faction. So she can actually give this to other monstrosities. So just something to key in there. Dark Seduction, I've never used this ability before, but I suppose you can use it on a solo and just have them walk away from a flag. Revive, this is probably one of the reasons you take her, is the fact that you just get recursion. And also, if I recall, Aberration is an arc node, so she still can do this while being in the back behind a wall. Vision, another. Oh my god. Another insane ability here. Vision is just when friendly faction model is directly hit by an attack, so her or Aberration can choose to have it suffer no damage. And mind you, it doesn't say the first time, it's just whenever you choose to not suffer damage, which is so crazy. So for example, if someone's casting a spell that needs to damage you, I believe like Stranglehold, for example, you could just say, oh, no damage, so the spell doesn't go off. Very sick. Now to get into the beefiest of beefy boys, this is the Aberration. So he did get nerfed, rightfully slow. So yeah, he also has Arc Node, sorry. ADHD brain jumping around a little crazy here, but a few things to notice on his stat line is he is an 80 mil. Pretty much everything that's a true merc has an 80 mil companion. He's got Breakthrough, very sick. Trample. He's got the whatchamacallit, Headbutt. I always forget what this one is. Is it Slam? It's got Slam. He's got Eyeless Sight, which is really important because he does have ranged attacks. And you can also charge through clouds, dual attack, and he is an arc node, so you can always arc off revive or re-up vision on himself. Hormone manipulation. Essentially, you get it if you're within Nostel's control range, you can choose one of the following effects to last a round. This model gains +2 to melee attack damage rolls and relentless charge, so gains Pathfinder while charging. Pretty sick. Dopamine boost, gains Overtake and Swift Hunter. Again, really cool. You can probably destroy an entire unit with this guy if so need be. Endorphin dump, so +2 to its attack rolls. Honestly, I normally always take this one if I'm going and just doing what my range combo will be, and I'll kind of get into that in a second. Hyper aggressive, when this model suffers damage from an enemy attack, after the attack is revolved, it can immediately make a full advance directly towards the attacking model. And last but not least, Impervious Flesh. When suffering a damage roll, roll 1 fewer dice. What that equates to is essentially boosting your armor value by about 3 to 4, just because you're taking 1 dice away from the equation. So this armor stat is actually about armor 20, if you want to look at it that way. Now, we're going to get into the fact that he still has, 6 attacks, and he can reload to get 7, just like initials. So he's got 2 grappling claws, a tenderizer, the shears, the adhesive blaster, and the saw catapult. So saw catapult did take a hit here, and it is Rat 4, so if you're going to be shooting it, you really probably want to take the endorphin dump for the +2 to make it Rat 6. Grievous wounds, humongous. Really needed. Again, this is kind of one of those like, hey, you just have something that your army might not be able to take on a stick, right? This is the real meat and potatoes for me here. Oh, let me reason with y'all here, okay? Let me reason with y'all. Okay, first off, it's going to a Rat 6. It's a Spray 8, and it's boostable because he's a monstrosity, right? So your Rat 6, and you're boosting it on 3 dice, your average is in 11. I think we've touched on that a few times, right? So you're hitting defense 17 on average dice, right? Not only that, but you get to reload and do it again. So technically, you can get 2 chances of hitting this, right? So if you're aiming this at, I don't know, Warlock, a Warcaster, or something that just has really high defense, you're gonna hit him with Shadowbind, which is -3 defense and cannot advance for 1 round. It could be shaken, but most likely when you're shooting this at something, it's to make your army absolutely decimate them. So let's say you've got a unit that's got def 15 and you just want to drop that to def 12. Or let's say you've got a Warlock that's def 16, you want to drop that to 13, right? I mean, come on. This opens up the floodgates for so many different plays, and it covers for the fact that your army might not have mat fixing. So for example, in my Deathicus army, I have no answer to high defense. So what is my answer? My answer is the adhesive blaster. The fact that I have something that can basically solve my army's problems. My current Decathus list, or Decathus list, has technically everything I need except mat fixing. So I take the aberration, and that solves that right there. That's the reason you take a true mercenary, really. And also, aberration gains, um, positive effects when another warjack has Shadowbind. So I'm reducing the armor of my opponent, and aberration just gets to insane power levels. A few other things to consider here is the hydraulic shears with critical decapitation. Now, obviously, that's just if you get lucky, but still something to notice. The tenderizer with that massive POW 19, which could get boosted +2 to POW 21. And if you have an armor debuff, it can go up to POW 23. It's going to hurt some people. He's also got beatback, which can really help you win the objective game. He's got again, for the mat fixing, he's got grappling claws. A warrior model hit by this attack suffers -2 defense and cannot advance. So imagine for a second that you charge a warcaster. Not saying that they're going to let you do this, but still, charge a warcaster, hit him with the man catcher, and then hit him with the adhesive blaster for -5 defense. Oh my god, it's insane. So yeah, let me just say that if you need mat fixing, look no further than Nostilla and Apparition. Now, another man who's just seen one of the best glow ups in 2026. We have Magnus the Unstoppable. It's 10 HP. He's also a warcaster. His sort of, all of these true mercenaries have some form of self-preservation, right? Nostilla being sucker, the Carver having the ability to transfer, as well as batten down the hatches. Well, Magnus's is that he just plays dead. So on a model with tough, that's actually pretty kind of important. Just because if he's knocked down, you can't target him with ranged or arcane attacks because people think he's died. This has happened way too many times in the lore. You would think that they would double tap him at this point, but fair is fair. Speed 5, AAT 6, Mat 7, Rat 6, Def 14, Armor 17, Arc 5, Control 12. One thing I will say is that I almost always have Magnus behind a wall because this Def 14 ain't gonna save you. Or this armor. This is kind of like the the unfortunate redheaded stepchild stats here with Def 14, Armor 17, but it is what it is. He's got a rocket launcher, which is surprisingly like one of the best ranged guns in the game at range 14, AoE 2, POW 14, boostable. Disgusting. It's also got a scatter gun. He's got his Foe Cleaver X, which is actually also pretty disgusting in the late game because when you charge and you do your star attack, it's armor piercing. So POW 12 armor piercing with powerful attack. Oh, whew. Crazy. He's also got a beatback, fist, which again could be insane late game. And shout out to Cosma from using pandas because yeah, this guy is a late game win con, not just Magnus, but Invictus as well. If you just let this guy live past turn 3 or 4, you're in trouble. He's got Convection, which I would rarely use, but just a point of note, Invictus is an arc node, so you can shoot this at something if need be. Energizer, which is +2, so sorry, not +2. It's you can immediately advance up to 2. Pretty sick when you're speed 5. And also Hellrot, which I always upkeep on Invictus, which is, let's see here, target cohort model and spell group caster's battle group gains +2 armor and retaliation. Retaliation being that he can make a vengeance move, advance up to 3 inches, and make a basic attack. And then you also have another out of activation. Advance. Something to note though is I don't think Invictus or Magnus have Pathfinders, so if you're in rough terrain, this number goes down to 1 and this number goes down to 1 as well. So just something to consider. Now, holy moly. Again, one of the wildest glow ups in 2026. Pretty standard Warjack, you know, uh, special abilities and stat line here. Speed 5, but again, if you get that Vengeance move, it's +3. If you get the Energizer, it's +2. Oh my god. And then +3 for the charge. And you've got a range 3 chain weapon. Come on. Come on, man. That's crazy. So we're talking about speed 5. Energizer goes to 7. And then let's say you got hit last time, you get a Vengeance move, goes to 10. Charge adds to 13. Plus you got that chain weapon. So it's a 16-inch threat range. 13 if you don't Vengeance move, which is nuts. Mat 7, which is kind of like elite status Mat. Rat 5, defense 9, kind of sucks, but it's okay, it doesn't really matter. Armor 20. With aggressive, so can run or charge without spending focus, fantastic. And retaliatory strike, which is if he gets hit, he gets to slap back once per turn. Obliterator, which has arcing fire and critical knockdown. So imagine with me here that you're arcing fire on a warcaster or a beast that's blocking the warcaster, and you boost it and you hit the crit knockdown and everything's knocked down. Now you can shoot the warcaster. It's disgusting. This gun, again, Magnus, oddly enough, even though Carver and Warbor are supposed to be the shooting like true mercenaries, Invictus and Magnus are like so close to touching them at like, hey, we can do almost the same thing as you, that it's insane. Flamethrower at POW 12, you know, spray unit killing weapon, pretty sick. He's got the scrap saw, which is the critical shred, and sustained attack, which is disgusting. And then the range 3 battle flail with the crit knockdown and the thresher. Again, POW 19 chain weapon, insane. Most of the ways that Warjacks are getting to POW 22 are via a shield, or sorry, not power. My bad. Most of the way that Warjacks are getting to armor 22 is via a shield, so the fact that you got a chain weapon means that this POW 19 is gonna really hurt most things, and most likely you're only gonna be like dice off 1. On a free charge, you're gonna be doing like probably 10 damage on average, which is gross. And then you've got your POW 18 with the sustained attack. So if you got a high defense, low armor, you know, anything, this is your answer. So yeah, pretty sick. I think Magnus and Invictus are going to cover for most people's problems, as well as just being an endgame powerhouse threat. The one thing that they don't necessarily do is give you like answers to certain minute issues. Like Carver has that Torment that we were talking about, and Quagmire. Nostilla has the Revive, has the Vision. Aberration's gonna help you with the Shadow Bind and the Grievous Wounds. So Magnus is straight up just a hammer. He's just gonna be doing damage, which in some armies is kind of all you need, you know? And also, unless they can take out this armor 22 with, let me see here. Yeah, armor 22 with retaliatory strike, like 34 box super heavy warjack in one turn. This thing's gonna hurt on the clapback. So as long as you position this thing really well and don't get him into too much trouble, yeah, he's gonna be a problem. So that's currently the 3 true mercenaries, and I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of a meta read. So on the data posting this, it seems like ranged armies are pretty king right now, or anything that can hit high defense or has mat fixing is still insanely good. So what true mercenaries can do is they open the door to allow you to play things that might not necessarily be super meta heavy. So oddly enough, Decathus has one of the highest win rates in Necrofactorium right now. I feel like Nostilla and Aberration boost that to like a higher level, in my opinion. I've only played a few games with Decathus in the 2026 meta, but I will tell you this Shadowbind And also just having some more ranged threats on the board really did make my opponent think and allowed Decathus to kind of get into position to have his monstrous feat turn. So if you can figure out a way to make a true mercenary either fit your army to cover its weaknesses or to really flex into the meta. So let's say you got that crippling grasp, you got parasite, you've got dark shroud, you've got ways to affect the opponent's army stats that could benefit these true mercs, then honestly I don't see a reason not to when they're costed at 20 points, right? Let me see. Yeah, all of them are costed at 20 points. To put into perspective, we have Deathjack, which is costed at 20 points. Now, I love Deathjack. I really do. I want to find a way to make him work in my Crix lists. And realistically, besides being Ghostwalk and Soul Shift and Annihilation on a stick for 1 soul point, the Necro Claws are sick. The Horn is sick. He doesn't get to charge for free, which kind of is rough. But he's just 24 boxes, armor 20, def 20. So in the grand scheme of things, even though he's amazing, and for his points he gives you a lot of utility, it's kind of hard pressed to argue the fact that Nostilla gives you revive and vision and also gives you 5 focus. Let's kind of see what I mean here. It's like I also get something that has more health, can also solve specific nuanced problems, but is completely resource dependent. Or I guess not dependent is what I'm trying to say. So Nostilla is the one who's going to be making sure that Aberration is working at full capacity every time, all the time. And also is relatively in the same stat zone, right? And same with Magnus and Invictus, right? I mean, that's my one thing, is that if you're gonna take a 20-point super heavy Warjack, you gotta make sure you're coming in with a plan, that your faction really supports it or can do something that just makes them insane, because it's hard pressed to not take one of these true mercenaries, in my opinion. Now, that's just my current meta read. It could change. Obviously, friendly faction spells and feats affect in-house character super heavies. So, you know, that is something that will always outweigh when basically saying, should I take this in-house super heavy or should I take the true mercenary super heavy? Of course, these just exist. These true mercenaries exist to cover your weaknesses and maybe allow you to open the doors for other not so meta like pick choices. I mean, Lord Deathicus or Decathus is really doing super well right now, but if we're looking at his spells and his abilities, the only thing that allows him to reroll is Knowledge of the Damned. That's it. He doesn't have anything else in his list besides, you know, the armor fixing that can help him. So, and you know, almost never want to spend your souls on a big turn because you're just trying to make sure that Deathicus lives and has a monstrous turn 3, turn 4, because he gets all those souls back into focus. So covering his weakness, or I don't want to say weakness, but his kind of just like lack in toolbox with Aberration's Shadowbind, humongous. Let me see if I could think of another one. If we're talking about like Nakane, she's really selfish with that arc, you know? She really wants to hold it for either Crippling Grasp or just Venom spam. So having someone just take away the burden of having to potentially use this arc value. I know you could use, you know, the Necrosurgeon Initiates to use the Empower, sure, but the fact that you have another spellcaster on the field that can either hit someone with like the brain damage or gives you revive, gives you vision, or let's go with Magnus, for example, just gives you this extra 5 focus to play with, to boost your rocket launcher attacks, to boost Invictus with the Obliterator, gives you some extra guns for an assassination run. Like, come on, man, that's what I'm talking about. Because, like, let's say you run Nicaine with Deathjack. I mean, you could make it work. It's a little bit more difficult. You know what I mean? It's a little, you gotta use your own resources a little bit more instead of just saying, ah, yes, here is another Warcaster with 5 focus. You know what I mean? I love Deathjack. I want to make him work. I know that he works with some of these other Warcasters, like especially Mordenebra, with the synergy or the mobility, pretty insane. So obviously that's an obvious choice instead of going for a true Merc. But for these other casters that might need a little bit of just like help to make their kit run really well, consider a true Mercenary. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me some comments or like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much. It's been a great day. Have a good one.